guys, welcome to another episode of A Drummer's Guide to. So this week I'm tackling the subject of excuses. This is a big one for me because everyone in life, I feel, has setbacks. They have people tell them they can't do something. I know I certainly did many times, sometimes not even intentionally, and maybe it was the way I took it, but I feel like those moments where people said, no, you can't, it ended up actually fueling me to go, actually, no, I'll show you. Yes, I can, absolutely. And it's really interesting to me putting out these podcast episodes, the videos that I put out, anything else that I put out. And very occasionally I do get people coming back to me going, oh yeah, well, I can't do that though because X, Y, Z. And to be honest, to be completely honest, it really frustrates me because I feel like if they just change the way they saw things ever so slightly, actually that excuse and that reason, if you like, that they can't do something could actually be used as a really good reason that they can do something. And I don't know if you've read or anything heard about this, but you find that a lot of amazing creativity actually comes from constraints. And I believe that. I really do. I think working within those constraints, whether you've been told something or you believe something about yourself, can actually lead to something really, really incredible. And it might be a breakthrough it, or it might be something because of that constraint. So anyway, I'm going to stop because there's an episode and this is kind of turning into an episode and it's only meant to be the introduction. So I'm going to go, but I will see you on the other side. All right, bye. Today's subject is based on a quote that I was brought up with, basically, that really annoys me, but it's 100% true. Always has been. And whenever I catch myself, I ask myself this question. And it's something that my dad told me when I was younger. I don't even know how old, but I distinctly remember him saying this. And I was like, oh, he's right. There's always a reason not to do something. It's so annoying, but it's so true. So I just wanted to talk about, based around this, excuses. Because, and I've been guilty of this in the past, but I do see it a fair amount around the place, and that is people having excuses to not do something. And it makes me really sad. More than anything, it makes me really sad because people put these blockades in their own way to stop themselves from, and I get it, it's because they're scared, and if they have a valid reason, then it wasn't their fault, it was out of their control. But I mean, that's fine, but I think if you actually want to be happy, work towards something, a good way of doing that, and when these blockades come up, if you can just say to yourself, like I do, there's always an excuse to not do something, it's a good enough reason to do it. And, people might see me and what I do, and they might say, oh yeah, but you've never had any problems like that. Oh, believe me, I have. And I've caught myself many times, like you wouldn't believe. So when I first started out, obviously, the most obvious one, I don't know whether you'd noticed, I don't really, because I just see myself as a drummer, I'm a girl. Now, a lot of people would think that is some people would say it's an advantage, some people would say it's a disadvantage. At the time that I started playing, it was definitely a disadvantage, and, people have preconceived ideas, well, that means she's no good, and all this sort of stuff. But I ended up sort of turning it round on itself and using that not only as motivation, but as a little kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a little joke to myself. Like, for instance, when I was 14, 15, I joined a heavy metal band, which I've spoken about. It's my first proper band. I was really excited. And I was this young, very young looking, I didn't look like I was 15. I probably looked like I was about 12. Long blonde hair, looking very, whatever, very timid. And we would go and do gigs, and we would come to sound checks, and there would be 4 other bands on the bill, and you could see all these heavy metalers just kicking about, and they'd be like, who is this little girl that's here? And I just that'd be fine. And you know, people might speak to me in a certain way, and I'd just be very polite and whatever. And then I'd get behind the drums, and I would smash the kit up and be very loud, because that was what I sort of knew I needed to be. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And that kind of response became a very big motivator for me. And I ended up finding it hilarious. I don't get it very often anymore, but when I do, it's almost a nostalgic thing, to be honest, and I really love that. Equally, I know for a fact that I haven't been called for gigs because I'm a girl. I know that because I just know that. You kind of end up going, well, that's the way it is. Deal with it, get on with it. It's not the only gig in the world. Like, people will always have their biases for various reasons, and you will have your own for various reasons. I remember hearing about a gig that I didn't get called for, which I understand that I didn't, and it all made sense, but someone else I know did. And one of the criteria was all the musicians had to be under a certain height. How ridiculous is that? But if you dwell on these things, it's only going to stop you from trying and doing your best and doing it for the reason that you're going to do it. And, you know, I like I say, I hear these excuses so often from people, like, I don't have anywhere to practice. What are you talking about? I didn't have anywhere to practice for years. Like, I didn't get my first kit until for the first, 3 years of playing. And then, even then, it was a kit with silencers on, so yes, it's something to play on, but it's not the same as playing on a live kit. And then when I moved out of home, I certainly did not have anywhere to play drums, and that was for a good, well, many years, maybe 4 years. I had nowhere to practice, nothing like that, but I worked with it and I worked around it. And, you know, being called for gigs, I can't do that, I'm not that sort of player. It was like, what are you talking? Just go do it. Just go see what's the worst that can happen. And sometimes it wasn't a great situation. However, I met new people. So there was always something positive that came of it. And I think, you know, just let people have their own reasons to not call you or whatever. But don't be your own reason to not go do something. And you know, there's always a way. There's always a way. And yeah, like I say, an artist might not call you because of X, Y, and Z. So what? You clearly weren't meant to work with that person anyway. Can you imagine being on the road with someone like that has that kind of preconceived ideas? I'll tell you what, go work with someone else, let them see you working with someone else, change their mind that way, and they go, oh wow. And you know, you never know how these things work out. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. There was one band that I did work with, and we were playing on the bill with someone else, and I went to go speak to them. And I loved this band. I was just like, wow, they're really amazing. And I got chatting to the singer, and I can't remember how it came up, but he basically let me know that we would never have a female drummer. Like, that's ridiculous. And really, I mean, it is quite rude. But anyway, he was like, yeah, no, there's no chance, not in a million years. Anyway, not long after that, they ended up losing their drummer. And lo and behold, I got a phone call. And it wasn't from the singer, it was from the guitarist. Just saying, yeah, would you be up for coming and, you know, having an audition? And I was like, I thought your singer said that you wouldn't have a girl in the band. And he was like, oh yeah, no, well, could you just come down and audition? I was like, yeah, that's fine. And of course, I prepared their material meticulously, and I was just like, I am going to blow these guys out of the water. Anyway, I went down, I did the audition, and they really liked it. And literally the next day, I remember, I think I was in a supermarket, I think like Sainsbury's or something, I don't know. And I got a phone call, and it was the guitarist, and he said, oh, look, we'd really love you to join the band. And I was like, that's amazing. So I ended up joining for a little bit, but it turned out that, I mean, I love these guys, but it was very much, after a while, I was like, yeah, we're not meant to, be hanging out together. We're just different, you know, and these preconceived ideas would still come across from this singer, and I was just like, you know what, nah, you're all right. And I moved on to something else. And I'm like I say, this was years ago. This would have been, I don't know, 2005, something like that. I don't really know. So yeah, the point is that if I'd have let that preconceived thing get in the way, then I'd be like, oh, I shouldn't be a drummer then because I'm a girl. No, I just want to go do what I want to do. If you want to have a problem with it, fine, you go do that. I'm just going to go do my thing, so I'll see you in a bit. That's kind of the vibe. So if you find yourself having some excuse that comes up inside of you, just take a look at it and go, right, there's always an excuse for something. Let's work with it. Let's work around it. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. I firmly believe that. So just go do what you want to do. No excuses, and I'll see you on the road. Hope that episode helped you in some way. As I say, we all have our own constraints, whether they're self-inflicted, whether they're someone else's opinion of us, whether they're physical, mental, we all have these things. And if you can try and turn it around, use it as a positive, or just realise that actually this will not define you and you can do what you want to do, but you may have to work harder than other people, but that's okay, because if you love it, and for me, drumming it was never an option. It was just like, this is going to happen. It wasn't like, oh, maybe if. It was just more like how and when. And for all my own detriment, I'm sure, in various situations, but I tell you what, I'm so glad that I was brought up with that quote where it was like, well, you'll always find an excuse to not do something, so you may as well do it. It's like, well, yeah, fair enough. As annoying as it was at the time, it was very true. So thank you to my dad for one of the many reasons to thank him for instilling that kind of headspace and that way of thinking. So anyway, right, I'm going to go. If you have any questions, if you'd like any subjects that you'd like me to cover, I'm not even sure that sentence made sense, but there we go. Please drop me an email at info@adrummersguide2.com. And also, I will be back next week with another subject. And next week, I will be talking in terms of my remote recording studio and basically how I got my first remote recording clients, what I did, how I built up my studio to the point where it's brilliant. I get to be in here when I'm not on the road touring or filming with the Voice Kids. I get to be in the studio recording for tons of people. It's like an absolute revelation for me as a person, as a player, as a business owner. And this is how I got started. So join me next week for that episode. Okay, right. Hope you're having a lovely week wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Keep on being awesome, my friend. And yes, I will see you soon. All right, lots of love. Bye.